समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Entirely on popular demand today, from many of you, I am daring to declutter Israeli politics. Why do I say daring to declutter? Because if you think Indian politics is complex, with all its layers and diversity, etc., you don't know Israeli politics. Because once you figure Israeli politics, you will think that Indian politics is a piece of cake. And how does it happen? How do the Israelis manage to do this? While they are less than 1% of us in population. So we are 135, 136 crores, depending on what your cutoff date for the count is. Israelis are just 8.7 million, 87 lakh Israelis, less than half the population of Delhi. That's all of Israel. But still, because Israel is inhabited by Israelis, they happen to be, they manage to be even more argumentative than us, Indians. The only community in the world that's more argumentative than us Indians is the Israelis. And second, they give you politics even more complicated than ours. And remember, once again, you might think that this is a very unidimensional country, all Jewish, it's a Jewish republic. About 20% of Israel's population is actually Arab. Arab as in ethnic Arabs. These are not people in occupied territories, these are people in Israel and they also vote in Israel. So Israel also has a strong minority. Now, what is the key thing with Israeli politics? One, remember, Israel has elections every 4 years. But this is a country that has proportional representation, which means the entire country is one constituency. The Knesset, which is the parliament of Israel, has 120 seats, but the entire country goes to the polls as one constituency. It's as if America goes to the polls for one president. All of America votes this president or that. All of Israel votes for any of the parties that are in the arena. So once all parties' votes are counted, then on the basis of how many votes a party has got, that party is given seats in the Knesset. So MKs, members of Knesset, are then chosen by these parties on the basis of their vote percentage. So it's very different. We are not familiar with this. In many countries, proportionate representation has done funny things. In Poland, in fact, proportionate representation, I think in one of their early elections after they came out of communism, even finally the National Beer Drinkers Party got enough votes to have 2 members of parliament. So this is proportionate. Now this proportionate system where nobody is elected, there is no candidate. So party leaders campaign, so Netanyahu will campaign for his Likud party, but he will have no candidates. Once you get these votes, then on the basis of that, you know how many seats you will get. And roughly, once again, very rough, you need about 3.25% of the total vote to make your entry in the Knesset, in the parliament. So if you get less than 3.25% vote, you can't even have one MP. So 120 MPs, 100%, you can do your simple math. It takes about 3.25% for one member of the Knesset. So what has this election thrown now? I'll do this count into along 2 tables. One I'll call right wing, that's easier. One I can call left wing, but it isn't left wing. Let me call not right wing, not right wing, because at this point Israel's politics is predominantly right or center right. There is very little of the left left, but I will talk about it in a minute. So if you look at the incumbent, which is the right wing, so incumbent party, the leading right-wing party which has been in power is Likud. Likud has got 25.1% of the vote. Likud is Netanyahu's party. Now, Likud's got 25.1% of the vote, but against it, the dominant party, which is not the right party of the right, his main opponent, which is General Benny Gantz's blue and white party, blue and white because those are the colors of Israel's flag. Blue and white party has 25.95% vote and therefore 33 seats. So that's how tight it is. One gets 32 with 25.1% votes. One gets 33 with 25.95% votes. But remember, the size of the Knesset is 120. So the majority mark is neither 33 nor 32. It is actually 61. So both are far away from that number of 61. Now, how do they get to 61? Obviously, you have to get 29 from elsewhere. Now, if you just add up the numbers on the right, you will think, oh, this is slam dunk. I mean, these people of the right can come together, just as, say, in India, UPA had come together. All center-left parties came together, and UPA came up to keep the BJP out of power. It doesn't work like that. So, if you look at the right, 7.44% and therefore 9 seats have gone to Shas. It's an ultra-orthodox party. 6.06% that has gone to United Torah Judaism, which is also an ultra-orthodox alliance, and I will tell you what ultra-orthodox is in Israel. 5.87% has gone to a group called Yamina, which is again a right plus far right alliance. 7 seats have gone there. And then 7% or 6.99% vote or 8 seats have gone to a group called Yisrael Betinu, 8 seats, which is off the right, but there is a twist. Now, if all these parties of the right combined, 32, 9, 41, 41, 7, 41 and 7, 48 and 7, 55 and 8, 63, it's a done deal for the right, but doesn't work like that. Because among these parties, there are differences. For example, Yisrael Betinu, which in some ways is to Israeli politics what maybe Ramvilas Paswan's party might be for Indian politics, which means they've participated in every government. They've cohabited with every ruling party. They are right-wing and orthodox, but they are very strongly opposed to privileges that Orthodox Jewish groups get. I told you, I'll tell you something about Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox Jewish groups. These are groups, they dress in a very traditional way. A large group of them are called Haredis, but these are people who do not even believe in the modern state of Israel. Israel, I told you, is a very complex country. These people think, I'm putting it very simply, so I'm not getting into a theological argument. These people think that human beings should never have created the state of Israel, that Lord himself had to come and create the state of Israel. So they might even see the state of Israel as an obscenity. How does a state exist? And they agitate against it. They often refuse to honor national symbols, but most importantly, they don't want to serve in the army. Now, Israel has conscription. It's a small country, it has big military needs, so every adult is supposed to spend a minimum amount of time in the army. But these Orthodox Jews have been traditionally exempted from that. Because if I don't accept this as a nation, as a republic, then why do I go and fight in its army? Now that causes many problems. One is a simple thing of all other families saying, or what you might call secular nationalist Jewish families saying that my kids have, boys and girls both, have to go and work in the army. These guys, just because they claim to be more orthodox, don't have to do it. And it's not just a question of serving in the defense forces. Those years that a young Israeli serves in the defense forces, that young Israeli is not studying. These Orthodox young Jews, on the other hand, are studying. So So they are leaving the others behind. Second, soldiers are working maybe on a salary of $300, $400 a month. Tiny soldier salaries. These fellows, on the other hand, can get private sector jobs at the same time, at the same age, and earn a lot more. So this is seen as inequity. So groups on the center, on the left definitely, but even this group, Israel Betinu, are strongly opposed to these special privileges for ultra-Orthodox groups. So you think this is complicated? I will tell you how it gets even more muddled. So you have blue and white party, 25.95% vote, in a way the winner because with the largest number of votes, with 33 seats. Its top leader is Benny Gantz, who is a former commander-in-chief of Israeli Defense Forces. It has a couple of other generals also. It also has, as its kind of number 2, a man called Yair Lapid. Yair Lapid is a TV personality. He's a TV star. He could be like any of your TV stars. Yair Lapid is one of the more strong opponents of this orthodoxy and orthodox privileges. Then there is what is left of the Labour Party. For a long time, the Labour ruled Israel between 1947 and 1977. It was the left led by the Labour that ruled Israel. Then it declined very rapidly. We'll talk about why it declined. So there is an alliance of Labour and a party called Gesher, which is more a centrist party. Labour is a leftist party. They got 4.8% vote, only 6 seats. And then there is Democratic Union, which is also of the left, 5 seats. And then comes the further muddle. I promised you this gets more muddled. Now, this leaves out 13 seats in the equation. Who's got those 13 seats? Those 13 seats have gone to, again, a coalition of many parties called Arab Alliance. Obviously, these are Arab parties. I told you about 20% of Israel's population is Arab. So, this group has got about 11 to 12% of the vote and 13 seats. Now, obviously, in the normal circumstances, you don't expect this group to go with the right. And frankly, even if it decided to go with the right, then in that ultra-Orthodox group, some will have a problem with this happening. Again, if you look at this entire picture, this is the entire political spectrum in Israel now. Very few, I'd say except maybe Labour, etc., very few will now openly back a two-state solution. The difference between right to center is that the right would want West Bank annexed fully. In fact, Netanyahu during the campaign at one point even talked about annexing Jordan, but that was election hyperbole. Whereas others will be happy with the current situation in Israel with Palestinian autonomy. So this is the current mess that Israel now finds itself in. 3 things have happened now as an update. 1, coalition talks have failed because there are only 2 parties we can get together and form a government. They are the 2 main opponents. So think of a situation in India that a government can only be formed if the Congress and BJP come together. Can such a thing happen? But because it's Israel and nothing in Israel happens as usual, this has happened in the past more than once. Israel in its history has actually had at least 7 unity governments where opponents come together and form a government. It's even had a government where 2 prime ministers have taken turns for 2 years each. These are things that we keep trying in India. This was tried in Kashmir between Congress and National Conference, Congress and PDP. PDP finished its time, but as soon as Ghulam Nabi Azad came in, there was trouble and the government fell. This has been tried in a few states in India that 2 leaders come together, other time mein. I think the only time, if I remember, this has worked well was in Meghalaya a long time back. And that was a church anointed settlement between 2 rivals who became chief ministers by turn. So in Israel, that is commonplace. And I will tell you that, commonplace means this has had really strong leaders and strong adversaries do it in the past. So adversaries like Shimon Peres of the left and Yitzhak Shamir of the right. That was in 1984 that government came in. Each one served 2 years. Now, so first of all, the president said, you guys try to form a government together. Those talks have failed. Now, since we are talking Israel, a couple of peculiar things about Israel. One, how did Israel go from left to right like this? As I said, Israel was formed as an independent entity around the same time as India. First 30 years, Israel was ruled by left or left-led coalitions. Israel has always been led by a coalition. Israel has always had a coalition government. But they were left-led. And the country took a hard turn to the right. And since then, they found it a very tough thing. The other peculiar thing I want to tell you is that in Israel, unlike most other democracies, the number of army officers, especially former generals and chiefs, defense officers joining politics and rising high is very, very high. So people like Yitzhak Rabin, Ariel Sharon, Moshe Dayan didn't become prime minister but was defense minister. These were all generals. Benny Gantz today is a general. 2 generals with him, 2 more generals in his party, Gabi Ashkenazi and Moshe Yalon, full generals. Similarly, I told you about Rabin, Ariel Sharon, and Ehud Barak, again who became prime minister. These were all generals. So there's a large number of soldiers who get into the armed forces. Now there are 2 things. One, because the country's situation with so much external threat, armed forces are held in very high regard. But second, there's a peculiar thing. Because of conscription, almost everybody has served in the armed forces. So even that TV actor, not TV actor, sorry, he's a serious journalist, TV star that I told you about, Yair Lapid, he's also been an officer in the army, though not a general, because every Israeli serves in the army except, remember, those super Orthodox or ultra Orthodox Jews. So it's in this business. In fact, at one point, so many generals are coming into politics that in 2007, Israel passed a law enforcing a 3-year cooling off period for a retiring defense services officer before he or she could join politics. But once again, when it comes to Israel, if you put a gun on my head, I might make a guess on what happens in Indian politics. But put a gun on each side of my head, I will not make a guess on what happens in Israeli politics. Because remember, as I said earlier, with just 87 lakh people, Israelis make an even more argumentative and complicated population or politics than ours in India. Given how complicated Israel's politics is, I think it's a blessing that Israel is also probably the most informal political system and society in the entire world. Almost anybody can have access to anybody. I speak from experience. I have done several tours of duty to Israel. I think, if my recollection is right, about 5, and another 4 visits to Israel, 3 or 4 visits to speak at conferences. Not lately though, some time back. And you get opportunities like catching Benjamin Netanyahu. He was a junior minister then at some event, and he says, okay, you want to interview me, you have a car, I'll hop in your car. So we conducted that interview while I drove the car, and there was a tape recorder in the middle of us. That must have been in 92 or 93 or thereabouts. You can also meet senior political leaders in restaurants. Ariel Sharon in the basement of a restaurant at the Hilton when Israel was under siege during the first Gulf War, which was my first visit to Israel. And I have also had the pleasure of interviewing and meeting several of the great leaders of the past, that is Ariel Sharon, Yitzhak Shamir, a formal big interview twice, in fact, with Shimon Peres, once in Tel Aviv and once in Delhi, and Netanyahu, of course. So this is a very informal society.